Fun.
Welcome to episode 9 of the Take Two podcast, where we ask the important question of how much spit is too much. I'm Kenny. This is Sam. Sam, what is the answer to the lifelong question of how much spit is too much?
I will have to ask my good friend, Hawk to a Girl, and see what she has to say. I know she's in some financial and legal trouble right now, but when she gets out of that, I'm sure she can get me the correct answer.
Yeah, once she gets out of debtor's prison, we
That's
can
right.
follow up.
Hey, it
Hawk to
happens
a
to all
girl,
of
come
us.
on the
It happens to
pod.
all of us. We all make a coin at some point and scam people for tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah, who amongst us? Who amongst us hasn't pulled a ginormous international Ponzi scheme like that?
Dave Portnoy, Donald
I
Trump,
know the government of Venezuela.
the government of Venezuela, the government of
Yeah.
Argentina.
Anyway,
Anyway,
as for housekeeping, we still have 17 subscribers on YouTube. So apparently you guys have already abandoned Ben Stiller. You already don't care about him. He's already in the past. His theatrical and cinematic genius has already left the zeitgeist. We hear you. We understand. We think you're wrong. But yeah, if you're here for the first time, like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Today on the pod, though, we are doing our first ever deep dive into a movie. Today, we're going to be talking about Ryan Coogler's newest film, his horror action musical question
I
mark
don't know about that. It's
film.
labeled
Today,
just it's labeled just as a horror. So,
labeled just as a horror movie. But today we're going to be doing a deep dive and giving our thoughts and reactions on Sinners. Just to start, Sinners is all over the news right now, man. It's exploding. People are super pumped about it. There was a point on Letterboxd where it literally had like a 4.5 out of 5 stars, like average rating among thousands of people after opening night. It has kind of averaged out a little bit, but it's still pretty high. There's also been a lot of talk about whether or not it's actually making money. Have you seen any of this?
I haven't seen that. I know I did see some stuff that it's the biggest domestic opening for an original film since like Us in 2019, so like 5 years, which so no sequels.
Yeah,
Right, it's just completely original, so it's the best since that, and it's
yeah.
made like $48 million, which is pretty crazy, really good
hmm
as far as the box office goes.
Yeah, I also saw that it has the highest cinema score ever of any horror movie, which is really impressive. Basically, for those of you who don't know what the cinema score is, they go and they poll people right as they leave the theater, and they kind of give a thumbs up, thumbs down on how it is, and it's like in the high 90s for a horror movie, which is really impressive. Me and some buddies did a deep dive because I would have thought that Get Out also would have had a pretty high threshold for that because a lot of people like that, but people are buzzing. People are super pumped about Ryan Coogler. They're really pumped about Sinners. This is, I think, and that, just potentially even bigger of a win than Minecraft, Sam. It might be a bigger win for Hollywood than Minecraft, which is saying quite a lot because it's an actually good movie that is actually making money. So,
Yeah, it is a good movie. I'm excited to get into this because I
yeah.
personally think a lot of these ratings and reviews are way too off the charts. Spoiler alert. I am a huge horror film fanatic. I have seen lists of horror films. So you're talking to like a bit of a savant here in horror films. Me and my brother were literally like obsessed with horror movies for so long, and so we're gonna get into why not this movie is bringing in a lot of money, why the ranking ratings are so high on it, and what we like about it, what we don't like about it, what's potentially overrated, underrated, is it right where it's supposed to be? We'll have that conversation. We talk about Get Out a little bit as well, but I'm really excited to do a deep dive on this movie.
Awesome. Did you want to start just like
Yeah.
what were your general what's your general vibe? Maybe we start there. Maybe we start with like what would you do you want to rank the movie right now? Like, what's your general opinion of the
Okay,
movie? Do you
I'll
want to
jump right in.
synopsize
Here we
it?
go. I went and saw the movie yesterday in theaters. It was me. It was another white guy. 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 It was me and 5 white guys in the middle of a
Yeah.
Tuesday at a movie
Your
theater, all
allies, just a bunch of
sitting, yeah,
allies.
all sitting by ourselves in the theater. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, look at all these losers in the movie theater. They have nothing to do but watch this movie by themselves, no friends. I was like, well, I guess I'll sit here since I've got no one with me. I can just pick wherever I want to sit. Yes, so I was one of those losers. And really, I'm looking around like, geez, we got to be like the real creeps here. Like, the day after Easter Monday, like going in to watch Sinners on our own. I'm like, man, Lord forgive me. So that was my viewing experience. It was great because they say when you watch the best way to watch a horror movie is either in theaters or by yourself. And so I kind of got the best of both worlds there, without the people screaming at dumb parts like on opening night. People will do that just for gags and stuff, and so it was kind of nice not to have that. So great viewing experience though. And okay, here's my opinion of the movie. Right. Okay. Wow. This is tough. Cinematography, amazing. Directing for the most part, really good. Acting, fantastic. Writing, pretty good. I would say really strong. And a lot of this, what happens to me is everything in the film is really fantastic all the way up until the midpoint of the film. And they have this incredible shot that marks the midpoint of the movie, which is when you have Sammy on stage and he's playing and you have all this dancing and they tie into the beginning of the movie and they're saying, oh, music and black culture can stretch or in all cultures except for white cultures, to the future and the past, and it can bring in spiritual things. And so they're showing this amazing dance scene of like all the way like from like tribal African dances, and these people are integrated into the room. It's an incredible shot, as well as like future dance scenes. They have some like Asian dancers, and they basically everything but white. One thing I've learned from this, and just Ryan Coogler in general, we'll get to this in our next episode, but he hates white people, and that's okay. That's his right as a filmmaker. But all of his films have a theme of like black excellence, black oppression, white people being the oppressors, and that's just how a lot of his movies go. That's okay. And it's totally, it's justified to an extent in this film because it's around, it's like 1930s, so Jim Crow laws, it's in the South, a lot of like racial undertones, and even, blatant racism in the film as well. But, so I would say everything up until the midpoint is really good and entertaining to watch. Here's the interesting thing though. Almost nothing up until the midpoint says horror at all. There's almost no horror. He's just making a good movie, and it's entertaining because Michael B. Jordan's fantastic. He plays these two twins. I don't always love when people play a twin version of themselves. Like, it's kind of hit or miss, like for me sometimes, but he nails it. He does an amazing job. He's a great actor. He's in like basically every one of Ryan Coogler's movies. Actually, he is in every one of Ryan Coogler's movies, and he's great. All the acting's fantastic. So the movie is they're putting together, Michael B. Jordan and his twin brother have come back from Chicago. They're kind of gangsters, and they are trying to put a juke joint together. So they buy this barn property from this fat white guy, and they're basically
Clan member.
Well, we don't know that yet. Yes, yes. So we later find out that the fat white guy is a Grand Master Klansman. Of course he is. Everyone that's white in the movie is a bad guy. Shocker.
That's not true.
It literally is. It literally is. You can literally
Haley
count
Steinfeld
them.
is not bad.
Yeah, but they also make a distinction with Haley Steinfeld, and they say that she's partially black because her dad was half black. So she actually gets a pass because they make that specific distinction in the movie that she has black lineage. So there you go.
I'll dispute that later, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well that's exactly what they said in the movie, so I don't know what to tell you.
Well, not that fact, but the fact that they're all bad. I have some thoughts on the vampires, but continue.
Okay. Yeah, I'm excited to hear that because I can't think of a single white person outside of partially black Haley Steinfeld that wasn't represented as like an evil white person. So, but whatever. Ryan Coogler, to each your own. If that's what you want to do, totally fine. So the plot is they're trying to basically make this club, this juke joint where Sammy and a few blues guys come. They play music. They're getting the black folk to come in from the surrounding area, dance, drink, party, and make some money from them. They want to have a place for these people, but they also want to make money. Great. That's the entire first half of the film. Okay, that's the entire first half. There's nothing scary besides a cheap jump scare 10 seconds into the film, which was kind of fun. It was a little tweak, and I shot up in my chair and I said, okay, I'm alert. I'm here. I'm ready. You have my attention, which is great. And so here's the thing. There's just no horror for the first half of the film. And this is the problem, right? That first half of the film is just an incredible movie on its own. But it's not horror, right? So it's tough to say that this movie's being graded as this incredible horror film. Well, guess what? When the horror starts in the movie, which is the second half of the film, this Irish vampire falls out of the sky. We don't really know too much about him, but he just comes out of nowhere. We don't really know his motives. And he infects two other white people who are Klans members, shocker, in the area to become vampires. And we don't know why necessarily, but they're attracted to Sammy's music. He's great at playing and some sort of spirituality. They're drawn towards how good he is of a guitarist. And so they want to kill him and everyone or make them all vampires. I don't know. I don't know what vampires are into. And so, but clearly that they want more vampires in their vampire clan so they can hang out together. Okay, great. So that whole part starts. These trio of white people come. They say, "Hey, let us into the club," and they're like, "Nah, homie, you're not getting in. You're white. You're creepy. We don't want you here." Oh, that's a total plot hole in the movie I want to talk about at some point. But regardless, one of them, Haley Steinfeld, eventually goes out there to try and talk to them because they're short on money, and they're like, "Oh, maybe they have some money." Kind of a weird thing to be like, "Oh yeah, we're really short on money, but these three people who want to come in and play music are saying they have a lot of money that's going to help break us even." I thought that was a weird kind of plot point in the movie, like a weird trigger to get Haley Steinfeld to go out there and go after them. Okay. She gets bit and becomes a vampire. Great. So basically the whole second half of the movie is just people like one by one or in groups leaving the club and getting bit by vampires and then coming back to the door and saying, "Hey, let me in." And then they're like, "I don't know, something's fishy. We're not going to invite you in," because the thing about vampires is that, as everyone knows, I watched another vampire movie this week to prepare for this one. You can't invite a vampire in, right? Well, if you do, that's the only way they're getting in. So this is a weird part in the movie because it's fun. They figure it out. They're like, okay, everyone out there is kind of a vampire. We need to just like be chill in here and wait till sunrise. Well, here's a problem, Ryan Coogler, with your movie is your characters figure this out, which is a fun part of the film. And then there's just nothing to do at that point. So they're just sort of chilling inside the club for a while until one of the women, the Asian chick, decides to randomly break down and invite all the vampires in, which leads to a pretty like fast and lame fight scene. Like there's nothing fun about it. It's just like the vampires barge in, they kill a few as they go down, and that's pretty much it, right? Have you ever seen From Dusk Till Dawn?
No.
Okay, so it's like one of the most famous vampire movies, and it's amazing. It has George Clooney. It's by Rodriguez, the director, who's like good friends with like Quentin Tarantino. So it's very much kind of a Quentin Tarantino style film. And the whole second half of that film is similar, where they're in a brothel and all these vampires are trying to like kill these people. But that movie is so famous for it's so much fun. Like they're being tactical and strategical, and it's kind of funny, and they're like being able to kick off vampires. Oh, they took this part, we got to move to the next part. And it's almost like a fun horde invasion film. There's really none of that here. It's like 20 to 30 minutes of the vampires being like, let me in, and they're like, still no. And then another person comes up, let me in, no, until the Asian chick breaks down. They all come in, and they pretty much all die. And then a few minutes later, they one of the Michael B. Jordans, because there's two of them, right? Stabs the Irish white dude, kills him, and they save the day. Basically, and pretty much everyone dies, except for one of the Michael B. Jordans at that point, and then Sammy. But it's not, as someone who gets scared easily and loves horror films, I didn't find it scary. I didn't think any of the kills were scary. I didn't think they hit like what was supposed to be their jump scares very well. It was all, you saw everything kind of coming. There was a lot of gore, but nothing even particularly nasty that would stick in your head, which I appreciate, because when it's like disgusting gore, sometimes it's just too much. But you know,
Right.
so like I'm saying, I just find it a strange film. The first half, just a good movie, has nothing to do with horror. The second half, kind of randomly horror thrown in there, but not the best horror. Just like, I would say average, like, or slightly above average horror. And then with an ending that is like super mid across the board, like super, super mid. So that's my general response to the film. I gave the film, if I were ranking it out of 10, a 7.5 out of 10. I liked it. I didn't love it. It wasn't like Get Out to me, right? You want to talk about a film that broke barriers with a black director that had a bunch of points between black and white, racial tensions. I thought Get Out was amazing. I know there's some people who don't like Get Out. I think it's so good.
It's amazing.
And I even
It's
think Jordan
so
Peele's
incredible.
Us might even be better than Get Out, which is crazy. But like, as far as this type of movie goes, I think Get Out was just incredible. I think Sinners just has a ton of overhype because we have really been void of something new, fresh, and interesting at the movies. And so, in summary, Sinners is a good horror movie, but not a great one. And in fact, it is already the most overrated film of 2025. Critics love it because it's made by a black director who has it out for white people and hates Christians, and takes place in a historical setting where whites are the overt oppressors and blacks are the victims. That right there is the ultimate modern film critic's ideal movie. But overall, the film is good in some ways, great even in fact in the first half, but none of that necessarily have to do with horror. So to praise it as the greatest horror film ever with all these high ratings everywhere feels a little disingenuous to me. Like I said, Jordan Peele, a black director, made Get Out, and I think it's a vastly superior film and a horror movie for its play on racial tension, and does a lot more with the craft and cleverness. So 7.5 out of 10 for
Whoa.
me on this movie.
7 out of 5. He loved it. He loved it,
I
everybody.
loved it so much I went right over. So there you go. That's my
Yeah.
huge spiel. And I've got some points, but I want you to talk because I know I
Right.
just ran your breath out or whatever.
Yeah. So I think there's several things that I agree with that you said. As someone who is actually not a big horror person, like I will watch a horror movie every so often. Like I did see it, I almost peed my pants the entire time when I watched it. Like Get Out is great. I've watched a few of these, like Companion earlier this year, kind of a horror thriller sort of movie, or like I watched Death of a Unicorn last week, and that was kind of like a horror comedy sort of thing. But I agree with you that for the most part, and to my relief almost, it was a pretty light horror. I think marketing it as a horror, this is the second time this has happened this year. Companion was the other, where like this movie was like marketed as a really strong horror vampire sort of movie, and it wasn't really that. And it's confusing to me why you would market a movie as horror when horror is just like it's kind of a niche genre. Like you can make a lot of money on horror because in general you can make them for pretty cheap. But there's not a ton of like it does not appeal to a vast audience. But this movie isn't that scary. And so if that's something that's holding you back from seeing the movie, I think that you can like rest assured it's really not that scary. It does have its fair share of gore, but I agree with you that overall it's just a good movie. I actually found the main vampire character, the Irish guy, to be pretty compelling because his story was that he himself, there's a scene where it's him and the two like Ku Klux Klan members that he had turned earlier, and then Haley Steinfeld are like at the door, and everyone understands, hey, we're vampires. No one's inviting anyone else in, any sort of, and they're having a conversation with the people inside, saying, hey, like the Irish guy is like, hey, I was also because the implication is that he was an Irishman during like the original English occupation of Ireland. He was the one being subjugated. And so he's been searching all of this time for someone who could reconnect him with his loved ones, which is what Sammy is supposed to do, and B, for a community again. And he kind of like gives this point of like, hey, this like Jim Crow South is giving you nothing, is giving you no community. You're not allowed to have a community, but here you have like here amongst the vampires, you will have protection, you'll have a community, you'll be able to be with your loved ones forever. And he actually makes, in my mind, a pretty compelling argument for, hey, maybe you would want to potentially turn if you're in this situation. I do think that the movie, like to your point about like white people being bad, I can see where you're coming from on that. However, it is a movie about the Jim Crow South, right? And to me, the movie isn't actually that much about the race relations as much as it's a movie about the vampires and the community aspect, but ultimately what I came away with from this movie is that this movie is actually about the blues and it's about folk music overall because there's there's the scene where Sammy, the guitarist, easily the most amazing, like it's cemented into my mind. It is an incredible scene. Everything that you said, where you have like the African tribesmen from the past, all the way up to like someone who like is either supposed to be Jimi Hendrix or just like a Jimi Hendrix standalite, like left hand guitar rocking, like that scene is incredible. Overall, I think Ludwig Göransson, the composer of this movie, if the movie didn't come out in April, I really think that he would have a very strong shot at winning an Oscar for best score. Here, I think that it's truly that good, and he's really good in actually all of Coogler's movies. Fun fact, they were actually roommates. Coogler and Ludwig were roommates at Sacramento State, where man, top 10 most hateable football programs in the entire Division One football. But Ryan Coogler did play D1 football, so I learned that this week, and I thought that was kind of cool. And Ludwig Göransson has just been really really impressive. He's really impressive in this movie. I really like, you know, um, the guy who plays Sammy. I keep blanking on his name, but he is an incredible musical talent. Like you can tell he is the one actually singing. Surprisingly, Haley Steinfeld does not sing in this movie, even though she is a singer, which I thought was an interesting choice. But anyway, you have that scene with Sammy, which is really powerful. But then you also have almost like a foil scene or like a dark image scene where you have the vampires are all dancing around while the main vampire is singing this Irish jig. It's actually a song that if you remember this from the first Sherlock Holmes movie, it's the same song that is sung by, I'm pretty sure, Mumford and Sons while he's in the boxing ring.
Okay, it
Same
did. It
song that is
definitely
being
felt like it had a tune I was recognizing, so that's cool.
Yes. So that's where it came from. I was like, oh man, I clocked that right away because I love the Sherlock Holmes movies. But he's singing that song, and it's the same thing. It doesn't have the same imagery of like past, present, and future. But that's what I really think the movie is trying to tell a story of, like, here is the power of music. It starts off with like this pretty much story about, hey, there's certain people who can connect to music in such a way that they can bring back the past, bring back the future. The main reason the vampires want Sammy to begin with is so that he can bring back their loved ones, not literally from the dead, but like metaphorically, like that the Irish vampire could be with his family again. And then there is an end credit. Did you stay for the end credits?
I was watching some of it when he's playing in the blues area, but I didn't
Yeah.
watch like if there's anything after. I didn't see anything afterwards.
Yes. So, spoiler alert, this is a pretty new movie, but it is really important. If you have not seen the movie yet, don't finish this segment. Also, you probably should have watched the movie
Yeah,
beforehand
at this
anyway.
point it's too late for
Why are
you.
you watching a podcast about a movie you haven't seen? Um,
It's too late for
but
you at this point.
there is an end credit scene, and at the end credit scene, we flash forward to Sammy, who is, he has lived his life. He has survived this one night. He has made it till dawn, and he's been he has been perfecting his craft through the early blues movement of the 1930s all the way up into like the the rock and roll era of the 80s, 90s. And then he's playing at this bar, he's closing down the bar, and in walks one of Michael B. Jordan's twins, the one who had been turned into a vampire, and his lover, Haley Steinfeld. And you find out that because there was a scene where I think it's Stack. Stack is kind of the more up like lighthearted one, and then Smoke, the other Michael B. Jordan character, is kind of your main character in the movie. He's like the more stoic one. Stack gets turned into a vampire by Haley Steinfeld, which is where the whole spit reference comes into play. But there's a moment where they're connecting, where Stack and Sammy are connecting again, and Sammy's like, "Why didn't you come after me?" It's like, "Well, I made a promise." With like Stack says he made a promise to Smoke that he wouldn't come after you, but then he at the end of the movie, Stack gives the same opportunity again to Sammy of like, "Hey, you've become a legend in rock and roll. Like you've been like the father of this movement, and you could do this forever. We could give you the opportunity to do it forever." And Sammy still turns it down. Why? Because he's already lived a life. And he's like he's saying my life coming to a close is part of its meaning. So I thought that was interesting. I actually did find this movie to be not as much about race relations as it is about the blues in particular. Obviously, the race relations takes a big part of it. There is like a very satisfying, in my opinion, um, kind of Quentin Tarantino revenge scene at the end where Smoke pulls out just these Tommy guns that he'd had from his time working with Al Capone in Chicago, and just like guns down 20 Klansmen. It's great. It's really fun. Like that sort of stuff is always just like cathartic, and like it is really like out of place. It's very strange that it's
Right.
there, but it feels good.
Is there anything really horror about it? Not really.
No,
Like
no.
again, it's very tough to call this movie a horror film. Like it
Yes, I
is,
would agree.
but it also is a lot of other things. So I don't know. I think a lot of people who go and I can see a lot of people going and seeing this movie and being like, that was not scary or that was stupid, and
Hmm.
just walking out. Like teenagers or below are just going to be like, yeah, no, that was dumb, right? Like
Hmm.
Smile was way scarier. That's like going to be a lot of like young people's
Sure.
mindset. Like you go into a horror movie to get scared or unsettled, and I don't really think there was any of that. But
I think
uh,
that's a
I
fair point.
I agree with pretty much everything you said. I think the guy who plays Jack, the Irish guy, does a great job of being creepy. He plays
Hmm.
a really good vampire. Again, just some weird plot holes for me, right? So for this guy who Jack, who's been alive for seemingly, maybe 300 plus years, maybe longer, really should know his night and day. He's in a good place. He just gathered 100 new subscribers to his vampire channel, and he's like, oh, we got to go in, and I got to go get this guy, and the sun comes up and like kills him, and it's just like, really, dude, like 300
Yeah.
years like gone like that, like because you were too dumb and you were fighting outside. Like just kind of a lame ending, I thought, as far as that went. That
And
happens
see,
in it's
I
every
read that
vampire
more
movie.
as like, yeah, I actually think that like that ending, him losing track of what time it is ultimately, and all of the vampires not knowing what time it is, shows how important like him getting Sammy is to him, right? Because he's
Why?
chasing after Sammy. He's like, I need to have Sammy
But
so that I
why
can
can't he
re
just get Sammy the next night, right? Like he's a vampire. He has all the time in the world.
well,
Like
sure.
and he just got all these people. He seems super happy. Like what?
Yeah.
He has
Well,
all the
sure.
time in the world. It's just a lame ending.
But if it is such a like a rare occurrence to come across someone who can like truly connect with music so that it brings the past and the future together, then I can understand his desperation. And he's so close. He is so close. He has literally whittled it down to the last two people. Two people. He is that close. So to me, it's like, yeah, even if I lived for 300 years, if I was that close to being able to be reunited with my loved ones, I would also have lost track of time.
Yeah, maybe. You'd be dead. I would not. I'm a smart vampire. There's also a weird
You are
part
smart vampire,
where
Sam.
they're entering. Like these teeth. You see those? Yeah.
Yeah.
I got vampire teeth. Also, a dumb part. Like again, you can make excuses and motives up for these things, but there's even a weird part where they enter and they're chopping down whatever vampires they can. And at one point, they're like, they shoot. Or someone hits Sammy, and then some of the other vampires flinch a little bit, and they're like, "Oh, he can," or they feel his pain. They feel his pain. Um, okay, cool. So, like, it doesn't seem that way because they say that, and then they're constantly like shooting and hitting them, and the guy seems totally fine, and he's fighting. So I thought that was a really weird line to throw in, and it was clearly used to like kill all the vampires at the end when he's dying and killing all of them.
Hmm.
um so I find that part like a little strange, and also I guess that makes me question why Michael B. Jordan and the other chick were alive at the end if they all felt his pain and he was like the center of the vampires.
I mean, the other vampires didn't die because he was dying, right? They also died because they were caught in the sun.
Right, but then what's the point of like the feel his pain thing? Because that never
Agreed.
came into play
Agreed. It
at
was
that
kind of
point.
like,
So
it seemed like something that was like, oh, there was an idea here, and then it was kind of like abandoned because they were all going to be outside anyway, sort of
right,
thing. It
and
didn't really need to
that's
be there.
what the second half of this movie just felt like to me. Is like,
Hmm.
oh, this is all being well written. Oh, we figured this out, and we don't know where to go from here. Like, we're not making our characters stupid. And so they're smart enough that they figured this out. And so now we have to rely on a plot hole where somebody just invites the vampires in. Like, there's no
Yeah.
cleverness, there's no trickery. It's just like,
Yeah.
even if you're the Asian chick, she's
I
like, oh, they might come after our daughter, like my daughter, and they already got my husband. It's like, okay, lady, but again, we got 10 minutes till sunrise. And it doesn't seem like these people are going anywhere because, like you said, they really want Sammy, right? And he
right.
even has made that clear. The vampire has. He says, "I'll leave all you guys alive if you just give me Sammy." Like you said, he's not going anywhere. He's
Hmm.
hyper obsessed there. So,
Yeah.
just a
I
few little
actually,
like plot holes I didn't like with
yeah.
some conveniences to get out.
Yeah, some of that, in my opinion, is like horror, though, right? Like that is in itself, even though it's not terrifying, it is a horror trope and a horror element where you know the nonsensical, like there are plenty of nonsensical things that happen in every single horror movie. Like, why in the world are you in a cabin in the woods? Like, why did you do that? Like, why? Like Tuck, if you've ever seen Tucker and Dale versus Evil, I feel like
Yeah,
they
of
make fun
course.
of all of these, like they make fun of all of these tropes of like, why are you going about doing stupid things? There is some of that. I actually did find it compelling that she was like, was having a fight and flight response because her husband had left, had been turned into a vampire. So she's experiencing grief. So she's already in a position where she's not going to be super sensical. And then they're like, "Hey, I know who your daughter is. I'm going to go and find her." And then if your option is like, if you're already kind of like in that state where you're grieving, you don't know how to grieve, you yourself are terrified, even though we sitting in the theater may not be particularly terrified, then the
I
response is
just
like,
still
hey,
think
do we flee or do
fight or
yeah.
flight like is not Like that's the worst decision you could make, right? If there was a gunman on the loose and your family had been killed, like you're not jumping out and being like, kill me too. Your instincts kick in,
True.
and you're like, I need to survive in this moment, and I'll figure that out later on. So I hate making excuses in films, especially for a film and a director that's supposed to be. If the whole film feels elevated and they're breaking all these things in the horror genre with the way they're setting everything up, then I also hate giving the out for the easy stuff. Just saying, oh, it's a trope.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, is it a great film or are they following tropes at this point? Because the second half of the
Right.
film then was just complete trope following up until
Yeah.
the ending when he kills a bunch of KKK Klans members. I'll say this because I know we're running out of time, but I liked Smoke's ending. I liked his arc, right? I like when characters' arcs come full circle. I thought he had a great arc with the woman he had a child with. I thought he had sort of a beautiful ending
Yeah.
for someone who was so hard-natured. Again, one thing I didn't like is they call Sammy Preacher Boy, like Preacher's Boy, because his dad's a pastor at the local church. They open the movie and end the movie with the same scene of Sammy bringing this broken guitar to his dad, and his dad telling him, "Hey, drop the guitar, son. Let's let that go." Right? He has a famous quote that we have up in the graphic: "You keep dancing with the devil, one day he's gonna follow you home." Right? The hilarious thing is this movie does seem pretty anti-Christian. There's a lot of like references that are like against it, saying Christianity is like oppressive and it's been forced upon them, and what hasn't been forced upon them is music, and music is spiritual and goes for generations, and it was there before this formal religion had been pushed on them. And so that's where Sammy's difficulty lies. I was disappointed that we didn't get some reconciliation on a full arc with Sammy and his dad as the preacher, because the irony in the criticisms of Christianity in this movie is that Sammy's dad, who is a pretty stern preacher, is absolutely right about everything. Right? He's like, hey, even though we
He's
know,
not he's
well,
not right about music. And
well,
I
he
he's not
is
right
he
about music.
is in the context actually of this film. He is maybe not generally in the world. Obviously, we're not out here saying you pick music or religion. I think or Christianity. Things have advanced in the world into which I think a Christian worldview would be something like God has given you these gifts, go use them in a way that brings light to the world. Something of that nature. In this time period, it's you have to choose one or the other, okay? And in this movie, the dad is actually, ironically, completely right. Hey, man, if you keep doing this thing, even though if it's not a worldview that makes sense today, we say back in the film context, he says, the devil's going to follow you home. Guess what happens that night? A literal demon vampire legitimately follows him, kills everyone he loves, which doesn't make any, the ending doesn't make sense to me when the boy decides to keep the guitar and he's like, oh, you know what, like in that situation back in the day, him being like, oh my gosh, my dad was right about everything, everyone I love just died, blues probably isn't the answer even though I'm drawn to it. It attracts vampires and demons in the world, so I probably don't want to keep doing this. And he's just like, nah, I'm gonna keep doing it. And it just doesn't make any sense to me at all. It would have been interesting to see some sort of arc with the dad, and because he had no arc, which was kind of a bummer. And anyways, I just found that amusing. Was that
I
yeah.
I disagree with where you're coming from. I don't think that it's saying, oh, like Christianity hates music. It's like, no, it's talking about like the traditional Southern Baptist nature of, hey, we don't do these things. And then like, Sammy and his dad have this conversation about like, oh wait, you're gonna go and you're gonna like play at a bar for a bunch of like drunkards and philanderers. Like, what do you think? What company are you surrounding yourself with? How do you think that you're going to turn out? And it's like his dad is making a bunch of great points. And I think that like I actually think that Coogler's kind of a little bit pointing to that. He is also pointing to the fact that like Sammy's song, right, is talking about how much he loves his dad, he respects his dad, he has like learned so much under his dad. People call him Preacher Boy because Sammy himself introduces himself as a preacher boy, which means that he's like proud of kind of where he came from a little bit, in my opinion. And then when he's singing his song, he's talking about how much he loves his dad, but he also loves the blues. He loves this thing that is given to him. And the end credit scene kind of talks about that too, about like, yeah, that like before, like he was like before the vampires came, it was the best night of his life. So he like at the end of the movie, there is a
But you
sense where older,
attracted vampires. Like, you
right?
playing the guitar attracted vampires. If I did anything in my life, if I was snapping and I attracted vampires and it killed like 100 people, guess what I'm not going to do the next day? Probably snap some more. What do you know about vampires? Like, there could be a million of them and it could be this one thing that attracts them. And he's just like, nah, I'm going to keep doing it. It just doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. I see it too as like he also feels like he has this calling, and even though he does like there is a risk that he will attract vampires, he also knows that the vampires are coming for him now, and so he can be a little bit wiser about that. I mean, that at this point is it kind of gets into a bunch of speculation of what happened in the 70 years or like the 50 years in between the time of the movie and where we see him in the end credits. But he also has the ability to connect people with their past and with their future. And so he's making like a decision here of like, is it worth the personal risk to me to be attracting vampires? Which it
Do you
turns
hear what you're
out
saying
he
right
had
now?
actually
Do you
been.
hear what you're saying right now? His,
Yes.
I love the blues so much. I gotta play the blues so much that I'm willing to take on the risk of me dying and anyone in the proximity of me dying because I gotta play the
It's not about
blues.
just the blues though. It's about like connecting people to where they came from and where they're going. Like he has this supernatural
There
ability
is
to look.
nothing worth risking a vampire slaughterhouse. Like, people can connect on those things on their own if they want to. Like, you are putting a lot of lives at risk because you have the selfish thing where you're like, I can connect via the
But
blues.
is like what like if he knows that the vampires would ultimately be coming for him, then he would be able to be smarter about where he like, he's not like the rest of his life he's not attracting vampires. That I would like I think that would be something that's like, okay, maybe that is a plot hole in the movie of
Of
like,
course, it's
hey,
a plot hole.
you show Sammy later and you don't explain how he hasn't been attracting vampires this whole time. That's fair. But what we do know in the future is like, hey, he has been like he has become this like force in in like the world of blues.
Yeah, yeah, and that's
But
cool. And guess what? It's
yeah,
also convenient. It's a plot convenience. That's what it is.
dude, that is like I'm sorry, but that's like horror movies. Like horror movies is a ton of like convenience.
But
I
this is
still think
supposed
that
to
there's
be a
like that trope in there.
highbrow horror movie.
And it still is. Like there's still a lot of interesting conversations between like the community, like what the music means to them, like the interactions between Haley Steinfeld and one of Michael B. Jordan's characters. That like both love interests are very interesting. How the Chinese couple kind of fits into the whole scenario. Even like the blues harmonica player, it has like a really interesting story about like, yeah, like I make all this money, but like I am a drunkard. He is stuck with all those things. I still think it's elevated. Like you can, but we can like continue to like pick that one little thing, but without that one little thing, you also don't have the movie. And so that all being said, I don't think that this is Coogler's best work. Ironically, Sam, we've argued a lot about this movie, but I'm at an 8 out of 10, and you're at a 7.5 out of 10. So, I
I
do
still
think that.
said I think it's good. I just think it's overrated. It's overhyped for someone who's, again, seen every Coogler movie. This is not the top of his movies. For someone who's seen an obscene amount of horror films, vampire movies, it's like I probably watched a better vampire movie 2 days ago called Nosferatu that was remade, and it was probably better than this. And like,
Mhm.
sorry, not sorry.
Yeah.
And it was
Do
also a
you
very elevated film that was set in historical times. So,
do you
um,
think that people are like hyped some? Because I do agree that like I did not like this movie as much as the internet has appeared to like this
everyone
movie.
has said 10 out of 10. The best
Yeah,
horror movie ever made. The best movie of the last decade. No, not even close. A good
yeah, it's not.
first half of a film, and sort of a sloppy second half of the film. That's a horror movie with a semi-satisfying ending, depending on your take on it. So that's
Yeah.
a 7.5 out of 10.
Do you think people are just like so because especially like the first third of this year, we're in April now, the first third of this year has like been pretty devoid, and it does feel like since COVID, like you just I don't know if it's just what it is, but it does feel like these sorts of movies, these like really punchy fun. I think that we can definitely argue that this movie is a heck of a lot of fun.
I agree. It is fun.
Um, and like punchy, fun, new idea movies are so rare that people are just like super pumped up about it because they're starving for it and they don't get it.
Yeah, I think it's good timing because the movie comes as we exit winter into spring. I think people's general moods are elevated a little bit. I think, Minecraft bringing people back to the theaters to an extent helped. I think there was a good timing on this film. It was well released. I think good word of like good buzz online about it, right? Like on my socials, like I think he also, like Coogler got a lot of people. Like I saw more than any film I've ever seen, a lot of black celebrities coming out tweeting saying you must go see my friend Ryan Coogler's movie. It's amazing, which is drawing a ton of people there. I think that's smart. I think that's great.
Yeah.
I think
LeBron
it's
loved it.
I think it's tough because from what I've heard, there have been better films this year. I heard Black Bag that you saw was actually like amazing. I've heard it was like great, and but like no one really went and saw it in the theaters. And so
I think that this movie is like, and Black Bag is good. This movie is better.
okay.
Like, and you know me, recency bias is always playing
Yeah,
into it.
whatever came out most recent.
Yeah, before that, Minecraft was better than Black Bag, and now just Sinners is better than Black Bag. But there have been really good movies, and we don't see everything. Maybe
No.
there has been
But
something
I'll,
incredible
I'll
that
just
we've
say
missed. But
marketing did great. It's a good
Mhm.
movie. I'll end with this because we gotta wrap this up. Is
Mhm.
um for me, overhyped, overrated, but still a really good movie. But I think if you were to talk to horror savants like myself and we went through and we're ranking this thing, like this movie ain't cracking like the top 25 horror films like of all time. Maybe not even the top 50, right? Because it's not that scary. It's just a good
Mhm.
movie.
Yeah,
So that's all I got
yeah.
for
My
this
closing
episode.
thoughts are agreed. It's not Ryan Coogler's best. It is still incredibly good. I do not like it as much as the internet seems to like it. I do think there's like a lot of not earned hype, but it is overhyped. This movie though has just all around, from everything below the line, just from like set design and cinematography and music and sound editing, is incredibly strong. Like this is a very technically impressive movie. The fact that Michael B. Jordan is playing two characters pretty convincingly, and they have their like they are truly two separate characters. You actually believe that they're twins and not just like one person playing the same
Right.
character.
Not everyone
And
can
it's
do
all,
that, right? Like that's
yeah,
hard. Lindsay Lohan did that. So that is hard.
it is really hard to do. Yeah. But this movie is just like it's a big performers technical movie. The fact that people are dancing in this movie, they are singing in this movie, like the actors are doing those things. It's very much like Golden Age where these people are just like very multi-gifted, and Ryan Coogler gave them an opportunity to like put that to show. But that being said, if you are going for a scary horror movie, you might walk away a little bit disappointed in that regard.
Very well said. So that is our Sinners Deep Dive review. 7.5 from me, 8 from Kenny. And our next episode, we're going to deep dive even further into Ryan Coogler, and we're going to rank all of his films, all 5 of them. We're just going to go worst to best. So that'll release in 3 or 4 days after this episode. So if you haven't seen all of his films, it's Black Panther, it's Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, it's the first Creed, obviously Sinners, and then Fruitvale Station.
Fruitvale Station.
Yeah. So, all right. So we are signing off, and we will see y'all next time.
Hawk Tua.
Tua.